Hello everyone and welcome back to Xbox Nation. My name is Fletcher and this is the video where we look at the games releasing over this next week and if any of them are worth your time and money. This is a really random week in May, yet we are seeing a ton of huge game releases for this week. Do make sure as well to keep an eye out for the Xbox Game Pass icon to see which games are coming to the service, as it's also a pretty big week for the Xbox Game Pass service. So with that, make sure to subscribe down below for more Xbox content every single day, and let's dive right into the games coming your way. First up and coming out on the 27th of May is a brand new strategy style game. Zombie Cure Lab is a really intriguing one, as it's essentially a base building management game centered around, as you guessed it, zombies. Basically, the game is actually centered around the fact that the undead have overrun the entire planet, and after years of desperate research, humanity has discovered an antidote that partially reverses zombification. You'll be taking control as a leader of a remote scientific outpost, and you'll have to build up a fully functional lab in the wilderness, assigning different workers to gather resources, set up different defenses, and ultimately construct machines that can capture and heal the zombies. Obviously, as you can expect, you'll be able to develop new technologies, expand your research tree, electrify your laboratory, and try to create a healthy working environment for your very own team. It looks pretty fun and a good grab this May if you love games like 2 Point Museum and others within the same strategy space. You may have seen Castle Country pop up on other platforms before, but it looks like an exceptionally cozy life sim that's been described as something of a mashup of Stardew Valley and Red Dead Redemption, and it has actually been in the works for quite some while, but the release is finally here for this week. In this game, you will get the chance to create a brand new life in the Wild West, building up your own farm and ranch while still getting to know the town's inhabitants and defending your property from different bandits in search of cattle. There are a whopping 18 potential love interests to explore, and if you have the adventurous side, you can dig for gold and gems in some pretty deep mines. For those of you though who prefer to get out in the wild, there's also the chance to hunt some game in the surrounding forests, both for your thrills and also to replenish your food supply. It looks like a really good experience, but if you want to try it out before you buy, a demo is also available on the Xbox Store right now. Now, this week on the 28th, we are also seeing our first Xbox Game Pass edition, and it's the episodic narrative adventure game called To a T. According to the developer Annapurna Interactive, it has us play as a teenager with a very unique posture, just trying to live a brand new and normal life in a small coastal town. Along with our dog companion, we will go to school, deal with different bullies, and then mysteriously discover a brand new ability granted to us by this extraordinary posture. I have done a bit more digging myself into this game, and we'll be able to take part in various different minigames, explore the town, find collectibles, customize team, and ultimately experience To a T's episodic story. I think I have mentioned this before in previous videos though, but this game is actually coming from the Katamari Damacy creator, and personally this has really intrigued me as we are going to experience something pretty out of place, weird, but bloody fantastic. As mentioned though, this is a Game Pass Day 1 release when it comes out later this week. If you like the mayhem that ensues with games like Buckshot Roulette, then Disorder Save Your Family will need to be on your wishlist for this week, as it looks to also shape up that traditional horror genre. To put it in a bit of perspective, it's essentially Hangman meets Hostel, so you can expect some intense, gory, shocking and suspenseful moments and an awesome looking horror game. As you can see though, the art style here really works well within that theme of the game, making it really stand out from the crowd here. The gameplay also looks to build some real tension, especially during timed rounds where the pressure ramps up quickly and the difficulty is definitely there as well. Upon looking at some of the Steam reviews, it does look to be a very short 2 to 4 hour experience, but the small price tag might be worth it, especially if you're curious about this indie title. We have seen quite a few Elemental War games on Xbox over the past few years, but we have another one landing onto Xbox this week, and if you like tower defense games, then this one will be right up your alley. The new game though is called Elemental War Clash, and it comes to us on the 28th of May, and it looks to combine that classic tower defense with roguelike and RPG mechanics, as well as different elements to combine and create some more powerful towers this time around. Upon doing some more research though, it does look as though the devs are taking the best elements of Elemental War 1 and Elemental War 2, but loading it with tons more content, along with taking the best features and bringing us a better visual overall as well. There seems to be a PvP mode that is in the game, so you can take on different people online or challenge your friends, or if you just want to play the game solo, you can also build some new maps in the new level editor. Again, this one comes out to Xbox on the 28th of May, and I'll be keen to hear if you're going to play this indie. Of course, the biggest addition arriving onto Xbox Game Pass this week is for Metaphor ReFantazio, and I know so many of you are extremely hyped for this land onto the service. This one note actually comes from the creative minds behind Persona 3, 4 and 5, and they brought us into a unique fantasy world this time around, where your protagonist will actually journey alongside his fairy companion to lift the curse for the kingdom's lost prince. This really is an amazing turn-based JRPG triumph from Atlus. Metaphor is basically a Persona game in a medieval setting, with press-turn combat like prior Shin Megami Tensei games, and has a strong focus on its narrative and no fluff like romance. Of course, this one does play a lot like Persona, which I know so many of you were really happy to see, but with a ton of new abilities and systems at play here. If you love games like the recent Clair Obscur Expedition 33, I highly recommend that you try this one out, especially as it was adored by so many who have played it already. For all you lovers of power washing or just addictive games that scratch that itch for being extremely pleasant, then Spray Paint Simulator is finally around the corner and comes to us on the very same day as Metaphor. This one though is a brand new game arriving onto Xbox Game Pass, so you can dive into it straight away at that low cost barrier. As mentioned though, this is a relaxing and totally satisfying painting simulator that does invite you to start your own painting business, starting from the ground up. You will basically embark on a whimsical adventure in story mode, and then you'll meet an eclectic group of clients, each of them in dire need of your painting expertise, and then essentially it's your job to take them on and start by prepping your space to ensure you deliver the best results possible. Of course, like any games like this, you will be able to upgrade your very own tools, vehicles and equipment, and you can then use an assortment of different ladders and scaffolding to help you get to those hard to reach spots. This one does look really interesting, and it does come again to Xbox Game Pass on the 29th of May as a day one title. Fuga Melodies of Steel 3 actually arrives onto Xbox this week, and I have to say I feel this one was heavily flown under the radar, especially as quite a lot of us did try the first two entries when they came to Xbox Game Pass a couple years back now. If you're unaware though, Fuga is an incredibly cool turn-based JRPG series that has been a cult hit since its debut back in 2021, and the highlight for many out there, including myself, is the awesome battle systems that come into play with every single entry. This new one though does pick up from the second game, however if you are brand new to this series, the developers have already made us aware that you won't have needed to play the original games in order to make sense of this brand new entry. There of course is a wealth of new improvements, including an overhauled combat experience, some improvements to the intermission and Tyrannus evolution, and some cool new world events as well. It's shaping up to be another great addition to this JRPG series, and I can't wait to dive into it later this week. Now, personally, I won't be partaking in this brand new game coming this week, as I absolutely hate sharks, but if you're looking for an indie horror experience that will chuck the huge sea creatures at you, then Submersed 2 Hive Mind will need to be on your wishlist for the 29th of May. If you are intrigued though, and upon doing some more research for this video, you essentially go out to find different resources and weapons, investigate terminals and secret documents, and then discover the hidden truth in the underwater facilities where you're essentially trapped. Of course, that does mean facing your deepest fears and fighting the terrible creatures that hide in the deep water, which is easily a big note from me. Along your way though, you will be searching for the last survivors in the underwater station and live the events that will be part of the destiny of the facility and all of humanity. It does sound very good for a horror game and definitely looks to shake up that genre. If you want to dive into this one, you'll have to let me know your feedback next week, especially if you get the chance to play it. Since Stray announced itself on the world stage a couple of years back now, cat games have easily become all the rage, and a new alternative from developer Spoonful of Wonder certainly doesn't shy away from that entire fact. Copycat is a poignant narrative-driven game that's about rejection, belonging, and the meaning of home, all of which Stray also had shades of, but this new attempt looks to capture cat lovers around the world by following the story of a newly adopted shelter cat whose space and home is taken by a copycat. It really looks to remind players to bring the tissues as they play this entire experience. Copycat though, as I've been doing some research on this one, has been out on PC since late last year and has done alright for itself in its time since. Over on Steam, the title does currently sit at 2,000 reviews at a very positive rating, and the game is now finally inbound for Xbox consoles. If you're interested, Copycat makes its feline debut for both the Series X and S consoles this week at a low cost barrier of just $15. One game that was unfortunately stuck as a Nintendo exclusive for a couple of years now is finally coming to Xbox this month, and it finally arrives on the 30th of May. Disney Illusion Island, starring Mickey and Friends, is actually a whimsical 2D platformer where you can choose from the likes of Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck and Goofy as they meet unlikely allies, defeat peculiar foes, and uncover hidden secrets on a solo journey or with up to 3 of your friends. Weirdly enough though, this one is a Metroidvania, and I really wasn't expecting this sort of game, especially when it comes to Disney. According to reviews though, and since its Switch release, it's a pretty decent game. Many have said that this game as a whole is extremely polished, but is not particularly inventive, and nor is it likely to appeal to anyone who favours a more combat-orientated Metroidvania experience. Still, it does arrive to the Xbox consoles with a ton of big updates and brand new content, so it might be worth diving into, especially if you're a fan of Disney. I think it's quite safe to say that one of the biggest releases of the entire year, and for all of you Souls-like fans, is coming out this week. Elden Ring Nightreign is taking the magic of the Elden Ring franchise that we know and love and dumps it into a co-op setting, which was certainly not expected for many of us when it was announced. To give you a bit more of an idea though, this is a 3-player co-op game and a standalone spin-off adventure set in a universe parallel to the events of Elden Ring. You'll be joining 2 of your friends at the Round Table Hold and then head off into a new setting called Limvelds. Within it, you'll be fighting together and other players to survive 3 day and night cycles. If you outlast a day, you'll then need to contend with the upcoming Night's Tide, which shrinks the map until you're left with no option but to battle one of many different Elden Ring Nightreign bosses. It does seem great, and I will try to review this one on launch for the channel, so if you're interested, do make sure to subscribe down below with those notifications on. F125 is one game I'm looking forward to at the end of this month, and any game that includes Lando Norris is a winner for me these days, and I apologise to any of you Max Verstappen fans. From improved track simulation and realism using LiDAR scanning technology to an overhaul of its most popular game modes, along with a new reverse track option which includes reworked track details and changes, there are a number of things to look out for with this next installment. I am particularly excited myself for the 3rd installment of the Breaking Point story mode, as they've really been a highlight for me over the past few years. As per usual though, you will have things like the My Team modes, multiplayer and so much more, and it's shaping up to be a pretty good installment this time around, especially compared to the dumpster fire that was F124. If you're interested though in trying this one before you buy, there will be a 5-hour trial available as well as part of your Game Pass subscription. Now, are any of you dying for a survival horror first-person shooter, with the inspiration being that of the Fear franchise? Well, I do have good news for you for this week, as Eternal Evil is coming to the Xbox Series X and S consoles alongside F125 and Nightreign on the 30th of May. In Eternal Evil, you'll immerse yourself in a blood-soaked world filled with relentless enemies, limited resources, and no forgiveness. We will essentially have to fight our way through the darkness using a realistic firearm system and a brutal physics-based damage model that lets us dismember enemies limb by limb. As you can see right now on screen, this really is inspired by the golden age of survival horror and puts you in control of a lone survivor trapped in a city overrun by the undead. Now, I have mentioned this before, but I'm really not a fan of horror games, so this really isn't up my alley. So if you want to dive into it or check out some more news, you can do so when it's available for Xbox this week. In case you somehow missed it, we did have a couple of games that arrived over the past week which shadow dropped onto Xbox Game Pass, but I wanted to at least make you aware of them as they are available right now. First up is the excellent card battler roguelike called Monster Train 2, and this is a huge new day one release onto Xbox Game Pass, and it also came out to some pretty fantastic reviews. This game though builds upon the fast-paced strategic combat of the original game, adding in brand new factions, deeper deck mechanics, and even more replayability. In the first game though, we fought to rekindle the fires of hell while battling against some new forces of heaven, but now with Monster Train 2, it's actually set to expand on that world with brand new enemies, environments, and gameplay twists. There seems to also be some brand new card synergies at play, some new unlockable characters, and dynamic difficulty scaling, so every playthrough will feel incredibly fresh. If you love deck building roguelikes, then this one should be at your top of the list to play right now. If you are wanting to dive into something a little bit more retro this week, then the Xbox Retro Classics collection is well worth jumping into, as it's a great selection of some old Activision Blizzard games that many of us never got to experience on the likes of Atari, Amiga, and so much more. This is part of a collaboration with Antstream Arcade and takes the form of a streaming-based feature that allows you to play these games over the cloud, and it lets you compete with unique challenges, leaderboards, and so much more. You'll of course need a good and stable internet connection to enjoy this Xbox Retro Classics collection, but it should otherwise run pretty well. I have actually managed to play this one myself and get some enjoyment here, and it's quite nice seeing some game preservation ideas, even though it's not the most local of experiences. So what game are you looking forward to diving into this week? Are you going to jump into Elden Ring Nightreign? Let me know down below, and if you are, let's join up in that multiplayer later this week. Remember though to hit that like button if you did enjoy this video, and also subscribe, as it really helps the channel out as we grow closer to 100k subscribers for this year. Whilst here though, why don't you check out the video on screen now, as I did cover the huge Xbox updates over the past week. There is a ton to get excited about here, and I know many of you won't want to miss these huge updates.